How's it going, everybody? My name is Elier Gonzalez, and this is the course of Next.13, a course taught by Scott Moss. Shout out to Scott Moss, which is the software engineer that has previously worked at Netflix, and now he's the CEO and co-founder of Superfilter AI. So, the goal of this course is to know everything about how you can know to use the latest features of Next.js that allow you to build from single blob apps to a full blow up, sorry, up to a full blow up, full stack apps and APIs. So here we're gonna see techniques that if you're quite familiar with my videos, and we have saw that how can we actually write server-side applications with React, okay? That particular technique of code splitting and server-side rendering. So here we're gonna see now in depth how we can make this server-side rendering and how easy is for us in Next to do that. So we're gonna see server-side rendering, static side generations, data fetching, building API endpoints, creating page layout, server components, client components, server actions, and so much more. So I just want to know that this is, or this today's video, and just taking note out of that particular course. Something that I'm not going to record on the screen because I received a flag from doing that from Frontend Master, where they say, hey, you know what, you shouldn't record our videos while you're learning. You can is take note out of that. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So if you allow me, I'll be right back quickly to take some water. And here we are, finally. We got our water here next to us. Next. You get it? Okay. Yes. All right, let's get into it. So this course is layout or organized like this. So first we got is the introduction here, the introduction, right? Then we got is, yeah, let me put it here. Something that I have here in the another course here. When here is core section, that's right, exactly. Let me put it here. So core section here. Core sections here. So here we're going to take a look at the introduction, and then the project setup and routing, project setup and routing, and routing. Then layout and styling, layout and styling. So since this is something that I'm quite familiar with, frameworks like Nux, so yeah, data handling and deployment, data handling and deployment, and wrapping up. Yep. And wrapping up. Okay, so this is the core sections. Actually, it's not that long, by the way. Remember that this is just an intro, an intro of this course, an intro of Next.js, and they made that because, after all, this is not that long. This is not that hard, especially if you're going to build now this full stack applications. We're gonna see is the basic of how you can enhance your next application as well as the latest features to do that, to cover most of the use case for that, and that's pretty compelling. Then it's up to us what we're gonna build with this. Cool. Now, here we are. Okay, let's go with the introduction, shall we? Introduction. All right.
Some high level overview. All right, everyone, how's it going? Everyone from around the world. My name is Scott Moss, and I'm going to be your instructor today for our version 3 of Next.js, which, if you've taken the last version, you know we recently just updated it. All right, everyone, how's it going?
All right, everyone. How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? How's it going? All right, everyone. How's it going?
All right, everyone, how's it going? Everyone from around the world. My name is Scott Moss.
Everyone from around the globe.
And I'm going to be your instructor today for our version 3 of Next.js, which, if you've taken the last version, you know we recently just updated it, but Next.js also just had some really big updates too. So I felt like it was worth, and the updates were substantial enough to do another one versus waiting. So I wanted to get that out, me and the front-end masters team. So that's what we're doing. Cool, okay. Well, a little bit about me. My name is Scott, obviously. I've been an engineer for a little over 10 years now. Before that, I was in the Navy, where I fixed helicopters stationed down in San Diego.
Interesting the story of Scott Moss. Scott Moss. Scott Moss has Scott Moss got 10 years in as software engineer, where before that, he was a helicopter engineer. That's interesting.
My name is Scott, obviously. I've been an engineer for a little over 10 years now. Before that, I was in the Navy, where I fixed helicopters.
Mm-hmm. He was an helicopter engineering. That's interesting. Or he was at the Navy, or he was in the Navy, sir. He was in the Navy.
If you've taken the last version, you know we recently just updated it, but Next.js also just had some really big updates too. So I felt like it was worth, and the updates were substantial enough to do another one versus waiting. So I wanted to get that out, me and the front-end masters team. So that's what we're doing. Cool, okay. Well, a little bit about me. My name is Scott, obviously. I've been an engineer for a little over 10 years now. Before that, I was in the Navy, where I fixed helicopters stationed down in San Diego.
Fixing helicopter, stationed in San Diego. Holy moly.
Diego, it was a beautiful job. I don't know how I got so lucky. But yeah, engineer for almost 10 years now.
Beautiful job. Oh my God, yeah.
Worked at tons of companies up and down the Bay. The last engineering job I held was at Netflix. I was a senior engineer there. Did all types of stuff at Netflix. Worked on the smart TV app. Netflix lets you do whatever you want, so I did whatever I wanted. It was really cool. But now currently I'm an investor at a
Mm-hmm. He also worked at Netflix, uh, and now he is an investor at a firm in San Diego. He's not an investor at a firm in San Diego.
firm in San Francisco where my job is basically like Shark Tank.
Where his job is basically like Shark Tank. You got his Shark Tank. Shark Tank and reality of it. Shark Tank. I take
I take pitches all day, like technical pitches. So
okay. He take technical pitches. All day.
it's really cool. Do a lot of AI pitches and
Oh,
API dev tool pitches and things like
yeah.
that. But still spend basically like Shark Tank. I take pitches all day, like technical pitches. So it's really cool. Do a lot of AI pitches and API.
He takes technical pitches all day. Especially
API dev tool pitches and things like that.
exactly with AI pitches and API dev tool pitches. Exactly. AI pitches. Yeah, AI pitches and dev tools pitches.
Where my job is basically like Shark Tank. I take pitches all day, like technical pitches. So it's really cool. Do a lot of AI pitches and API dev tool pitches and things like that. But still spend a lot of my free time.
Okay, AI and dev tool pitches and things like that. Interesting, especially when you are an investor. Especially if you're especially if you're an investor.
Time writing curriculum, writing code, building things on the side, keeping my
keeping my technical skills sharp. Very, very important, man. So what he does is writing code, reading code.
technical, a lot of AI pitches and API dev tool pitches and things like that. But still spend a lot of my free time writing curriculum, writing code.
Okay. So he does writing curriculums, writing CVs, curriculum, writing code,
building things on the side, keeping my technical skills sharp. One, because it's just a personal passion of mine.
keeping his technical, keeping his technical, keeping his technical skills sharp.
But two, it actually helps me with my job to be up to date on these technologies when I'm talking with these founders.
Exactly. Because it can help, because it helps him, because it helps to keep up to date with these new founders. Mm-hmm.
That way I know what they're talking about, and I'm not fooled or tricked or anything like that. So also love things like games, sneakers, basketball, anime, stuff like that. So if you're into some of that stuff and want to connect around any of that, let me know. But other than that, I'm just your typical engineer that just stays up till 4 o'clock in the morning writing code for no reason. So that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, this course it's in the title, right? It's an intro to Next.js V3. We have had so many updates over the last 6 months that have come out to Next.js in the form of Next.js 13. I think when Next.js 13 first came out, there were a lot of like beta features that people just weren't sure if they were going to get, brought into main, and the APIs are going to remain the same. But now they're no longer beta; they're part of the actual framework. So we're going to be covering a lot of that. They were going to get, brought into main, and the API. I think when Next.js 13 first came out, there were a lot of like beta features that people just weren't sure if they were going to get, brought into main, and the APIs are going to remain the same. But now they're no longer beta; they're part of the actual framework. So we're going to be covering a lot of that. And just to put it out there, Next.js has tons and tons and tons of functionality, features. Like we just won't be able to cover all of them today. Like it's just impossible. It would take like a week to cover everything in Next.js. And that's, as you'll see, most of it is actually for like more advanced apps when you go into production and like collaboration and teamwork. But the foundational stuff, that's what we're going to be covering. So you'll have the foundational stuff. Next.js has really good docs. So you can go follow on the docs, and we'll take a look at the docs and go over things like that. But I just want to make sure you have a really good foundation on like pretty much everything you would need for any Next.js app.
Okay, yeah, because, okay. So now more about the course. Yeah, so now more about the course. Since Next.js has a tons and tons of features. Exactly. So now more about the course. Since Next.js has a tons and tons of features, we're going to see the basic foundation, or we're gonna see the foundation foundation uh, yeah, we're gonna see is the foundations, so we can know how to build so we can know how to build this kind of app.
No matter what you do, the docs, so you can go follow on the docs, and we'll take a look at the docs and go over things like that. But I just want to make sure you have a really good foundation on like pretty much everything you would need for any Next.js app.
Exactly. But to see, okay, so we're gonna see the foundations that you're gonna need, that you are gonna need for every Next.js app. That's one of the reasons here. Okay.
No matter what you do.
Exactly. No matter what you do.
And go for it from there. The other caveat.
And go for there. And go from there. Mm-hmm.
Caveat is that with Next.js 13, there's a new way to make a Next.js app. And
Okay. Caveats. In Next.js 13, there is a new way of doing apps.
we'll see what that version is. But the previous version, there was an old way to make the app. So if you are part of a team using the old version of Next.js, some of that stuff is not going to be taught here because I'm only teaching the new stuff going forward because that's what the Next.js team is pushing. So
So here we are going to also learn how is this new way, since that's what the Next.js team is pushing.
So we'll talk about some of the older ways, but we won't be demonstrating, and there's no curriculum built around it. But I'm totally down to have a conversation about it. If you have experience working on the older version and you have some questions on how it might relate to the newer version, let me know, and we can go over it. Cool. So a couple things. If you go to the
So only, okay, just for the record, we are only mentioning all ways of doing things, not demo. No demo about it. Okay.
notes should get you here. It's just so these notes are, honestly, mostly for you all. If you've ever taken my courses, you know that like I just prefer just to hop in the editor and just make mistakes and do it live. That's just kind of my style. I just have to do it that way. I can't like follow along. So these notes are mostly for you all, but everything that we'll be covering will be in here. You see I have 2 links here. One is just a link to shortcut you to the Next.js documentation, which we'll be referencing. I hope you'll be referencing because again, there's just so much amount of information in this framework and we're not going to cover everything. But the other one is the actual repo. So
Okay, so here we're going to take a look now at this is the next docs. Okay, important by the way to get this, and the repo, chorus repo. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. This is the documentation and the repo. Okay, what do we expect to take a look at this? Okay. All right. Cool.
click on that. You can go check it out. Highly recommend using this to as a reference for the code that we'll be writing. If you feel like you might be falling behind, if you just want to.
Okay. Yeah, oh my God, it's next. Couple things, couple notes, or you can say notes. Here, some notes. Yep, notes. Next docs and course repo. So if
go check it out. Highly recommend using this to build much amount of information in this framework, and we're not going to cover everything. But the other one is the actual repo. So if you click on that, you can go check it out. Highly recommend using this to as a reference for the code that we'll be writing.
Okay. So our repo here will be used. Yeah. So our repo here will be using this as a reference for the code that we'll be writing. Okay, makes sense.
If you feel like you might be falling behind.
All right, so if you feel like you are falling behind with the exactly.
If you just want to look ahead, if like.
Okay, if you feel like you're falling behind or look ahead.
However you want to reference it, it's there. It's always going to be there. So take a look at it.
Yeah, you can take a look at that. You can take a look at that.
Be doing everything from scratch in this course, and
that's something I love it. Here we are going to do everything from the scratch. Yeah, here we're gonna do everything from scratch.
And I'll probably be doing it very similar to what's in the repo, but not exactly one for one, because I'm just random and I just do things differently every time I write code. Like, I don't remember any of this stuff. I just do it again. So that's kind of how my style is. But yeah, so the other thing I just want to talk about is like what I think you would need to know to get the best from this course. So one, having a good understanding of Node.js. So that doesn't mean you need to be an expert.
Exactly. Prerequisites. Good understanding of Node. Yeah.
At it, but maybe if you've taken an intro course to Node.js, that's probably good enough. Or if you've just built a Hello World app in Node.js, that's probably good enough. That also includes if you've ever built any front-end app that uses a framework like React or Vue or Svelte, because they all use build tools that are based off Node.js. So that's probably also good enough. And then obviously you need to know JavaScript. I'll be using TypeScript.
Oh, I love it. Good understanding of Node. Yeah, good understanding. Yeah, good understanding of Node, JavaScript, TypeScript. I love it. Okay, that's great. That's interesting.
In the course, you do not need to know TypeScript. All the types are optional, and I never use them. So you won't even notice it. But I'm just using TypeScript out of the box because it's just easier to work with these days. And then the last.
Yeah. We'll be using TypeScript out of the box. Since it is pretty easy to work with this. Yeah, since it is pretty easy to work with this.
TypeScript, they all use build tools that are based off Node.js. So that's probably also good enough. And then obviously you need to know JavaScript. I'll be using TypeScript in the course. You do not need to know TypeScript. All the types are optional, and I never use them. So you won't even notice it. But I'm just using TypeScript out of the box because it's just easier to work with these days.
Yeah, it's easy to work with this day.
Because it's just easier to work with these days.
Yeah, it is easy. Yeah, it is easy to work with. It is easy to work with these days.
And then the last thing.
I agree. It's becoming quite more and more easy, even though that doesn't. Yeah, even though that doesn't make it misery, especially if you're doing a migration, but that's go beyond the scope of the work. Just a quick side note of that: 10 to 60% of TypeScript migration is misery, because you don't know if the TypeScript is telling you TypeScript error or is TypeScript being finicky about it. But after that, after you pass that point 60% and up, things slowly now getting better and better. You gain momentum as you make that migration. That's great.
Is, I would say, probably a decent understanding on the difference between like servers and clients and just basic networking with HTTP and kind of how that works. Like, maybe to the point of like, how to make an API call. Like that's it. Anything beyond that, I'm not expecting you to know TCP and WebSockets and, DNS level things. Just like, I know what an API call is. I know what a server is. I know what a client is, because it's going to get kind of crazy in here when we talk about some of the new features. And I'm very curious how people react to it, because when I saw some of this new stuff, I was just like, what is going on? So it's gonna be pretty cool.
Okay. And also a good understanding of Node, JavaScript, client side, client server communication. Okay. Or in this case, the HTTP client server communication. Okay. Basically this. We'll be using this.
Okay, let's just take a look at the finished app. I didn't focus on style here. It's not going to win any awards, and and that's intentional. We're focused on functionality.
Okay.
Let's just take a look at the finished app. I didn't focus on style here. It's not going to win any awards.
Okay. The final. Oh my God! What the hell? This is the finished course repo. Finish 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 it course repo. Here, it doesn't focus on the style, so we are not going to win any award here, just only in functionality. Oh my god, but that's like a dead repo. It's like, oh, he didn't holy moly, this thing is broken. Home, docs, to do. Is this for real? Oh my god.
And and that's intentional. We're focused on functionality. But basically, it's a to-do app that's just composed of three things. So you have like a home page where you can put all your home stuff. We have a documentation page where we can write documentation about an API that we're going to have. And then the actual app, which is just a to-do app that allows you to like create to-dos and it just lists them
This
here
is
for
the
you.
notes here.
It's basically it. So it seems simple on the surface, but if you've ever built a to-do app, you know, I mean, you can expand that.
It's actually broken, by the way. The app is broken. The app is broken. All right, good. Okay, the app is broken, bro. What? This is their note. And Scott note. What in the F? Anyway, man. And he made that on Notion.
To create some complicated, I mean, you can make Evernote. That's an app. I don't know how Evernote is a thing, but it's $1 billion company. So, you know, it happens. So we'll basically be building this using the latest features from Next.js. Also, we have a full stack course that I teach using Next.js, and this will literally transition right over to that. So
Oh, okay, because we're gonna. Mm-hmm. 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 Create a full stack AI powerful journal app from scratch. And because they're using heavily is Prisma and Planet scaled and integrate OpenAI and align changes before deploying your app to the world. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this feature is, that's an app. I don't know how Evernote is a thing, but it's $1 billion company. So, you know, it happens. So we'll basically be building this using the latest features from Next.js. Also, we have a full stack course that I teach using Next.js, and this will literally transition right over to that. So in that course, we will actually build a sophisticated, nicely designed, ready to go production app that like you can deploy. And hopefully my goal with that one is that you'll be able to use that app every day. It'll be something that you actually enjoy. So that's a more ambitious one that I teach using Next.js, and this will literally transition right over to that. So in that course, we will actually build a sophisticated, nicely designed, ready to go production app that like you can deploy. And hopefully my goal with that one is that you'll be able to use that app every day. It'll be something that you actually enjoy. So that's a more
Okay, because here we're going to see is there's some other resource here when he mentioned, for example, right below here, resources. Because this course is on for a more powerful feature rich improve for a more powerful feature rich and improve in a nice look and feel. Okay, it's for a more powerful and feature rich a nice look and feel app. Here is the next course to do that. And this is part of the other resource. This is now full stack app next AI Next.js, because it's build an AI powerful full stack next app. Build a powerful full stack Next.js app. And this is now looking at more things that are on demand. What is this? No, but this is next. Yeah, but this is using next. No, it's this one. Okay.
ambitious one, but you need to know this foundation before you can do that. And that course is a lot faster. We're moving a lot faster in that course. We talked about this already, but
we need to do this course before jump into that, which is this one. We are going to move faster there. Okay.
the last thing here is just like how to best take this course. So like I said, I'm going to be giving some high level overview about some topic. You might see me break away and just like demonstrate some code about that topic unrelated to the app that we're making. And then it'll be like, okay, now I'm ready to like apply this to the app that we're making. So basically what you can do is you can listen as I'm doing those first two steps where I'm giving an overview while I'm demonstrating how to use it in the code. And then for the third step where we actually apply it, you can follow along on your machine and, you know, copy it.
Yeah, the idea here, okay, so the idea here is to follow along with all their recommendations, notes, and put up practice what you are learning, as well as asking questions. As well as asking questions while answering them. Oh my God! While answering what you're learning, as well as asking questions while answering on the fly. so you can get a get a bigger bigger picture of what we are doing, what is the benefit, okay, and it is trade-off. Because like any solution, it has it has trade-off. Okay, cool.
Or do it your own way. Or just feel free to follow along whenever I'm an editor, but I will be doing a lot of code that I'm just throwing away just for demonstration purposes. But I will let you know which code is like, I'm just testing this out, I'm just showing you, versus like, no, this is for the app. You should pay attention to this. So you don't have to worry about that. I think it's important to talk about the history of
Yeah, yeah. This is now the history. As a way to gain a little bit of perspective, even though that is sometimes can be quite null or dumb, or you don't know why is this, can be boring totally. But the point of this is to know how do we reach here. It's the same way as when I asked you, how do you came here? How do you reach to look at this video?
of Next.js and kind of how we got here. Especially if you're new to engineering, if you just graduated boot camp, there's some stuff going on here. So, because you might ask yourself like, well, isn't React a framework? Why do I need a framework for a framework, right? It's kind of weird. But the interesting thing is that like, if you go to the React documentation, they actually don't recommend using React by itself anymore. They actually recommend using something like Next.js, which is huge. That just happened this year. So they recommend using something like Next.js or any of the other frameworks. But anyway, the history of React and Next.js, as you know or may not know, React is just basically a library that was created by Facebook
in 2011. Okay, the history of this is, so you might wonder why we have to use another framework, or on top of that, so React is a framework built by Facebook at 2011. 2011 to make user interface. Okay, it's important to understand how do we get here. And it made it open source, and it made it open source, right? Open source, 2013.
long time ago, 2013, 2014, and then eventually picked up steam to become pretty much the #1 JavaScript framework out there. Although I do think there are faster, better frameworks out there.
Yeah, totally. It pretty became the JavaScript framework, or it quickly became it quickly became JavaScript, the popular JavaScript framework. Okay, yep. It quickly became the popular JavaScript framework, which is good. Although, and I agree with that. Although I think there are more faster and better frameworks out there.
I think React is probably still the most popular one because it just has the biggest community, and everything is pretty much based off of the learnings that React taught everyone. So like everyone just took that and improved it, had their own opinion. So React's probably going to be the most popular one going forward because the community is just crazy. But
but it's like that. There, yeah, and I think there's more fast. They are more faster. There are faster and fairer frameworks out there, but React has a massive community where they improve things um, as each iteration or with each iteration. They improve things new with each iteration. And other frameworks are learning from there, from it.
It's really just like a library. It's not really a framework, in my opinion. It's just a way for you to build UIs. Like it doesn't. It's not complete. Like if you ever use something like Angular, where Angular is like, all right, you can build these UIs with these components. Also, here's a router. Also, here's a testing framework. Also, like here's everything that you ever need to do.
Exactly. So React is more like a library. So if you have built Angular apps, when they tell you, okay, here's the UI, here's the router, here is the test environment.
Everything in Angular, you don't need to install anything else. Yeah, React's not that. React's just like, here's how you make components. That's it, right? They don't even have, a complete state management system. Like,
Mm-hmm. So React doesn't have that. Yeah, so React doesn't have that. They don't have, for example, a state management system.
you would have to install something else like a Redux or something to do that. They definitely don't have a router. You would have to install a router.
Exactly. For example, it doesn't have a state management system. You have to install Redux or ATK or a router. Or a router.
So, and that's really cool because it allows you to have that flexibility of like leveraging things from the community.
That's kind of good because you can have the flexibility and leverage of the community, but it comes with a trade-off of convention.
But when you're a big company with a big team, the last thing you want to do is like go shopping for open source.
Yeah. but if you are but if you are a big company with a big team, the last thing you wanna do is to shop things is to shop open source. You wanna do is like go shopping for open source. We're talking about now scaling. That's what happened. But if you're a big company with big team, the last thing you want to do is go is like go shopping. The last thing you want to do is like go shopping open source. Yeah.
And putting your company's resources back on like some random person.
It's like go shopping open source and putting the oh my god
But when you're a big company with a big team, the last thing you want to do is like go shopping for open source and putting your
And then
company's
putting the
resources
company
back on like
resource back on, and putting the company's resource on, yeah, and putting the company's resource back on some random person, and putting the company's resource back on some random person connected to a router.
some random person, living in a basement working on a
Living in a basement, working on a router. Working on a router.
router. Like you want it to be backed by like a big company.
You like it or not, yeah. You wanna be backed by bigger companies. So you want that assurance. Not only that, but also the value that you're providing with those tools.
So you want that assurance. So that's why like bigger companies would use something like Angular.
And I get it. That's why bigger companies are using things like Angular. I get it, man.
So then, that kind of created the need for something like Next.js, where you needed a framework for the framework.
So that kind of create a Next or Nux, a framework for a framework.
Like kind of brought all these things in. And I think what kind of expedited that was the fact that there were a lot of advancements on how you can render React. So you can render it on the client, you can render it on the server. We're going to talk about some of those things. But building that infrastructure to do that was incredibly difficult.
Exactly.
Advancements on how you can work for the framework that like kind of brought all these things in.
So that kind of create a Next or Nux framework. Yeah, that kind of create a need for Next or Nux frameworks or Nux. A framework for a framework.
Angular. So then, that kind of created the need for something like Next.js, where you needed a framework for the framework that like kind of.
So that kind of creates a need for Next. Next. A framework for a framework.
Brought all these things in.
Yeah. That can brought all these things in.
And I think what kind of expedited that was the fact that there were a lot of advancements on how you can render React. So you can render it on. It kind of brought all these things in. And I think what kind of expedited that was the fact that there were a lot of advancements on how you can render React. So you can render it on the client, you can render it on the server. We're going to talk about some of those things. But building that infrastructure to do that was incredibly difficult. I remember on how you can render React. So you can. That like kind of brought all these things in. And I think what kind of expedited.
Expedited. Speed up. Okay, expedited. Interesting. Expedited. And I think what kind of expedited, there was the fact, okay, and because of that, that can brought all of the things in.
That like kind of brought all these things.
Yeah, that like can bring, or that can like, yeah, that can like kind kind of broad, yeah, that can kind of brought all of the things in. That can kind of brought all of the things in.
Then, and I think what kind of expedited that was the fact that
Yeah. and I think that kind of expedite expedite in this case is that speed up, okay, and I think that kind of expedite the fact that was the fact.
there were a lot of advancements on how you can render React. So you can render it on the client, you can render it on a server.
Okay, and I think that kind of expedite the fact that the fact you can now render React apps on the client and the server, and the need to do that was incredible.
We're going to talk about some of those things, but building that infrastructure to
But building that infrastructure is it was incredibly difficult. It was incredibly difficult.
do that was incredibly difficult. I remember when server-side React came out, and I was on a team that had to implement that. It took us months. It took us months to figure out how to do it. Whereas like now we get it for free. So
Holy moly. Interesting. So when, oh my God. Interesting. So Scott Moss mentioned that when server side rendering in React came out, it took months to do that. Now you can do that for free. That's one of the powerful thing of this, especially on the React rendering. Exactly, it's like putting all of this infrastructure or building that infrastructures, that the fact that you need to have a framework on top of the framework, because after all React is just a library for building UI. That one. So you don't have is, for example, unlike other solutions like Angular, that they come out with, hey, here is the UI, here is the router, here is the testing environment. In React, you don't have that kind of thing. But you can now, thanks to the community, add ons on all of this. You can have a router for that. You can have also a state management, like Redux. But it makes, perhaps for small companies, okay, for small companies, for the individuals, so that you have now the leverage of the flexibility and leverage of the community. But bigger companies don't. But bigger companies, Jesus. But for bigger companies, the last thing you want to do is to do. But for bigger companies, the last thing you want to do is to go shopping an open source and putting all the company's resources back on some random persons living in a basement working on a router. So you want to have some back, or you want it to be backed by bigger companies. So you want that assurance That's one of the bigger companies out there are using and rely Angular. So that cannot create the needs of Next to have a framework on top of another framework. And especially, I think because that expedite the fact that now rendering client side and server side rendering, something that we're going to talk about that, uh, building that infrastructure, it was incredibly difficult to make that happen. So in the case of Scott Moss, say when server-side rendering came out, it took months for them to do that, but now you can do that for free. Again, this little history is to understand how do we get here and the pain that we pass through and how we have learned from all of these lessons, and this is the solution as well as it is trade-off. So the TLDR of that, which is something that I also recognize from frameworks like Vue and Nux, but in our case with Next, is this little history, which is very, very important for anyone that wants to dedicate time to this industry and recognizes the value of what they are doing. How do we get here? Because once you understand what this tool does for you, you now will embrace complexity. Complexity like this framework. Yeah. Okay.
But that's kind of like where Next.js is and why it came to the scene. And now it's like probably the most heavily adopted, most useful React framework out there. And there are others that kind of compete with Next.js and do something similar, but I think Next.js just has like the full package.
Yeah. So there are other frameworks out there competing with Next, but this is what it has the most. But Next.js just has exactly. But Next.js have the But Next.js have the full. Yeah, but Next.js just have the full package. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the history of React.
And I'm something quite familiar with this, but I recognize now how incredibly hard, difficult is to build the infrastructure for serving or rendering on the server and rendering on the client. And I think that expedite the fact that we need to build an infrastructure that make that easy for that. Why this is important? Because at the end of the day, one of the things that matter for a lot of this business is that user retention and user conversions. So if you can improve the user experience to your users by offering things as fast as possible, so there are other techniques like code splitting and server-side rendering. Here we're going to focus this on server-side rendering. Is for that. It's like we need to actually build our infrastructure that makes our life much more simple when it comes to actually satisfy the user needs.
Next.js, also to mention that Vercel is the company behind Next.js, formerly Zeit. It's not called Vercel.
Site. Exactly. So Vercel is now the company behind Next, and I think it's pretty good. Next.js. Okay, Vercel is now the company behind Next.
But yeah, that's the history of React, Next.js. Also to mention that Vercel is the company behind Next.js, formerly Zeit. It's not called
Next.js for for formerly formerly site
Vercel, their hosting platform.
formerly site. They are now a hosting platform. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're now a hosting platform and a team dedicated to work on Next. And I get it.
And they have a team dedicated on working on Next.js, and I think they're doing a really good job. But so are all the other frameworks out there. I think all the other frameworks are doing really great. It's just, this company is crushing it in my opinion. Any questions about that history of React, Next.js, frameworks in general? Like if you just went back 10 years, it wasn't too long before we didn't even have frameworks. I remember Backbone.js was the first framework, but before that, everybody just used jQuery. And like part of me wants to go back to that, but the other part of me is just like, man, there was no order there, but it was also very simple. It was a simple time. So I don't know, but there are some really cool frameworks out there that kind of feel like that. I like Quick.js. That one kind of.
Quick, yes. Quick for instant loading website and apps. Oh my god, what the hell is this? Quick.js. Oh my god, what the hell is this? Again, okay, there's a lot of diversity here. It's like, oh, I get it. Quick create. Oh, okay. Okay. No, okay. What the hell? This is another framework for real? Oh my god. This is another framework quick. Oh god. Delivering some app scale off. Fuck. Oh, man. Instant low, resumable, lazy executing, redux rendering, perf that scale, go once, server only, client only, both. It's because the infrastructure that is based on the user experience to improve the user conversion and retention. That's all. That's the entire reason why people actually do this. Burgers on Fleek, Navigate is like, what in the F? Exactly. And the presentation of week. Made with love by builder.io. Exactly. This entire web app was built by that. Convert Figma design to go with AI. That's pretty compelling. And I'm not afraid of this. In fact, that actually motivate me more to do this kind of thing. It's like, it's like, again, after all, people need to actually know how all of this infrastructure is going to work. We need to know the fundamentals, because if you don't do that, it's like, oh my god, bitch. That's interesting. Try Visual Copilot here. But again, this is not like Everlane, Zapier, G-Crew, Afterpay. Because building a SaaS is quite easy, good, interesting, but as you can see, maintain that is when actually, because a lot of people can build SaaS, but now the real job, or the big the big job here, or the growing up, or the main job, or the grow up job, is scaling that. The grow up job is scaling that. You know what I mean? Is that and not only that, I am more interested is on the social aspect, which is the image. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, man. It's a lot. Okay, it's interesting to take a look at this. There are other frameworks out there, like out there like Quick. Yeah, there are other frameworks like Quick. Okay, so quick.dev, where now the yeah, like Quick, which is made by Misco Heavy, made by Misco Heavy. And okay, that, oh my god, okay. CTO of Builder.io. Interesting. Builder.io. Builder.io. Yeah, like Builder.io. Part of your composable, exactly. So Builder.io, and there are other alternatives that I don't remember very well. Hydrogen, which is from Shopify. And especially because there's a huge ecosystem here of things that they need to connect to that. Yeah, the Builder.io, visualize. Damn, I don't recall that. Builder or anime. But there was another one. Anime versus Builder and Webflow. App Builder versus Anime. Character build help request, anime, da, da, da. Okay, compare a builder competitor. Nah, but you're not gonna mention that. Best no code builder AI alternative. No, there was also Versoli, exactly, Versoli, like this one. WordPress. Custom code. Simple page builder. Exactly. Okay, so builder. Builder.io. Versally. Use another one. Made in Versally. Co-founder Shunai Lambert. Just the co-founder. Mm-hmm. Versally. And the other is Versally Framer. Okay. It, there is a lot of money there. So Framer.io, right? Oh, the account. Okay, the account. Yeah, but there's a lot of alternative out there here. Framework, Versally, Builder.io, Builder.io. So they are local platform. Okay, they are local platforms. They are local platform. The local platform there. Again, you're still gonna need people that know the fundamentals to keep build for keep. You're gonna need people to know the fundamentals to still improve on the features. Yep. Squarespace, OutSystems, Keyflow, Hostinger, Adobe, Salesforce, Wix, Buildfire, that kind of thing. Okay. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Because this is something that Scott Moss mentioned in this history. Frameworks out there like Quick, where the CTO, where Misko Hevery works previously in Angular, and now he is the CTO of Builder. That makes a lot of sense. In poor performance.
Hi, I am Mishko Hevery. I'm the CTO at Builder.io. In the past, I've created AngularJS and Angular, and now I'm working on a new framework called Quick, which allows you to build instant-on web applications. Today's web applications are extremely JavaScript heavy, resulting in slow startup performance. In this course, you will learn how Quick takes a fundamentally different approach to executing JavaScript on a server and on a client, resulting in an instant-on web application. I hope you enjoy the course. How do we build websites in the past? And I think this is kind of a good history lesson. So in the past, same thing twice. So if you go to a page that shows a list of content, can we do some of it on a server? And because it was an afterthought, it never really lived up to its potential. But the nice thing about this particular world is that it's all just JavaScript. You have no code duplications. There's a unified mental model. Everything is in a single framework. And, but you have this problem that your application runs twice. It runs once on a server to generate the initial HTML, and then it runs again on a client. And if you think about it, the HTML that was rendered on a server, that HTML can be thrown away because when the client reruns, it will rebuild everything, right? It is the HTML that came from the server was only there for you to kind of look at something while the page is kind of being loaded. And so we're kind of having this, basically the problem with this particular world is hydration. Because in order to become interactive, we need to run hydration. And hydration is basically rerunning the whole website from scratch, right? Yeah, we can reuse DOM nodes, but it turns out that if you deleted the HTML, that the framework would just recreate it. So like, yes, it can sort of reuse it. So, we use fancy word like reconciliation. But at the end of the day, the DOM nodes are unnecessary. If they're not there, the framework just recreates everything from scratch. And so the good mental model is basically, yes, HTML showed up. We're going to throw it away, and we're going to rebuild everything in the client. And that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what yes, HTML showed up. We're going to throw it away, and we're going to rebuild everything in the client. And that's exactly what's happening. Away, and we're going to rebuild necessary. If they're not there, the framework just recreates everything from scratch. And so the good mental model is basically, yes, HTML showed up. We're going to throw it away, and we're going to rebuild everything in the client. And that's exactly what.
Exactly. HTML show up. We're gonna throw that away. We're gonna rebuild the entire app.
Happening. So what does the future hold? And so this is where I think we have a good developer experience, but we need to get better at the performance. And so the future, in my opinion, is all about keeping the DX we have, but adding a good performance to it. And again, when I talk about performance, I don't mean runtime performance. I don't mean the performance in a sense of like the solid.js, which is one of the fastest frameworks out there. I'm talking about a startup performance. I'm specifically talking about how long does it take for a user to click on a link and then seeing what they want to see, the site that they want to see, and being able to interact with it, right? The problem we have is not how long does it take to add 1,000 items in the shopping cart, right? Because most of the benchmarks are like add 1,000 items into something. That's not our problem. The problem is we can't click on that button to add a single item into the shopping cart. And so the trick that Quick does is that not only does it serialize the application state, but it also serializes the framework state. And that's the magical bit that allows us to do.
Okay. But the idea here is to look at this and to understand. Okay. I think this is something interesting to recap about it. Because this will give me is some. All right. Okay. So this course is from Next.js, which is now a framework on top of another framework, React. Okay. You might wonder, why do we need a framework on top of another framework? I'm gonna talk about that later. But this course is taught by Scott Moss, which is a software engineer that has previously, with over 10 years of experience, where he previously worked at Netflix. Okay, and now he is the CEO and co-founder of Superfilter AI. So this course, the goal of this course is to look at the new features that Next 13s allow us to build, or to take a look at the next is to see everything we need to know about the latest features and fundamentals of Next.js to build full stack applications, from simple block sites to or up to full stack apps and APIs. So the idea of this is to look a little bit of history, as well as the techniques that allow us to do, and the structure that allows us to do that. For example, server-side rendering, static site generations, layout, routing, building an API, data fetching, creating page, server components, client components, and server actions. And all of these things is to know the fundamental of how you can solve is client problems, especially those who build agencies, those who wants to offer new ways of how you can develop application, how you can let the users to develop landing page for that. Okay, but a little bit of history of Scott Moss, where he previously worked as a fixing helicopter in San Francisco. That to me was quite interesting, a beautiful job. Okay, uh, he was in the Navy fixing helicopter. Here, yeah, yeah. He was in the Navy fixing helicopters stationed in San Diego. Okay, and he also worked at Netflix. And now he's not an investor at a firm in San Diego, where his job is basically like Shark Tanks. He takes pitches, technical pitches all day. So AI pitches and DevTool pitches and things like that. When you are in that kind of level of an investor at a firm, it's like, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. So what he does is to writing curriculums, writing codes, keeping his technical skills sharp, because helps to keep up to date with this new founder pitch. Mm-hmm. And that's quite interesting here. That's very, very quite interesting here as a way to gain a little bit more of perspective of this. So now more, so this is his experience. So he worked in the Navy, fixing helicopter in San Francisco Bay. Now move on to a software engineering, where he is currently he's currently an investor at a firm in San Diego, where his job is basically like the Shark Tank. So he takes technical pitches all day. He writing curriculums. So he writing curriculum. He writes, or what he does is writing curriculums. That'll be interesting to know a little bit more about his life. Anyway, or those investor, the lifestyle of an investor. I don't think they want to actually show that off. It's like, and I know why. But now he's an investor, and he takes, or what he does is to writing curriculums, writing code, keeping his technical skill sharp, taking technical pitches all day because of the role, the founders. He needs to keep up to date with the founder pitch. And now we're going to look at the tons of features, and especially the basic one that allow you to know everything that you can start to write your next app and go there from and go from there. So we're not going to look at what are the previous features that next, because they go into a full rewrite of a lot of features, and we're gonna see why they went through that. We're just only going to mention how Next.js did that in the past, and actually the implementation of how to do that right now. Some prerequisite here is to understand Node, the environment, the JavaScript, and the HTTP client-side communications, and also understand a little bit of history here, which to me is something important to know. How do we get here? Because once you understand that, you will embrace complexity, and you will now fight less that. So here is explaining is what is React, which is a framework that was developed by Facebook in 2011, and now uh, uh, make it they made it open source in 2013. It became the most JavaScript popular framework out there, and also thanks to this community. Even though that I think that there are faster and better frameworks out there, React have this massive community that have improved things along the way on each iterations. The thing is that React only is a library. You can think of this as a library that is good at doing one thing, render component. That's all. So React doesn't have things like state management, so so we need to install that, or client routing, so we need to install that. So this flexibility is great if you're a small or big company or an individual where you can leverage from the open source. But for a big company with a big team, the last thing you want to do is to go shopping open source, because you're letting the company's resource back in someone else, random people, like in a basement working on a router. Okay, that's one of the reasons why a lot of these companies go with solutions like Angular, for example. So you need to be backed by a bigger company. So, and that also expedites the fact that in React, when you want us to now do things like client-side rendering or server-side rendering, the whole point of this is to improve the user experience by showing things faster, keep the user attention, and ultimately the conversion lead then to a conversions. Because of that, now trying to make that happen, trying to improve the user experience and make also the developer experience reliable and fast as possible, putting all the infrastructure, it was incredibly difficult. So that's why we have Next. Next come with the need of find a way to make everything, or to make the infrastructure much more easy to go with. And that makes a lot of sense. Frameworks like Next, or frameworks like Nox, but in the case with Next, which is backed by a company called Vercel, which is behind the Next, formerly Sate, and now he's the hosting platforms, and Vercel has a team that, so Vercel now is a hosting platform and a team dedicated to work on the Next. Even though there are other frameworks out there like Quick, where the founder previously worked at Angular, and he's the CTO of Builder, pretty much like this low-code applications for developing and designing landing page, for example, creating agency studios. Okay, so you have this Builder.io or framework, Vercel, which is a new one, and but the entire reason of this is to understand how do we get here. And it's because, after all, we want to improve the user experience. The way how big companies find out is by find a way to render things on the client as fast as possible, and then when it comes to improve the SEO, do that on the server. So we have now this dynamic nature. I think this is a very, very good introduction to this. And with that, that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye-bye.